Flat Stanley at bat. Stanley Lambchop lived with his mother and father and his little brother Arthur. Stanley was 4 feet tall, about a foot wide, and a half-inch thick. He had been flat ever since a bulletin board fell on him. Sometimes being flat was a bit tricky. When he turned sideways, Stanley was hard to spot. And a good gust of wind could sweep Stanley off his feet, but he never lets his flatness get in his way. "I'm trying out for baseball," Stanley told Arthur one day. Arthur helped Stanley practice. Stanley hit 1,000 pitches. He caught 1,000 fly balls. Stanley's hard work showed at tryouts. "Congratulations," said Coach Bart. "You're our new center fielder." Opening day was bright and breezy. The teams ran onto the field. "There's Stanley," cried Arthur. Mr. Lambchop snapped a picture. Mrs. Lambchop cheered. "Hooray for the other players, too," she added politely. Stanley was the first batter. He stepped up to home plate, turned sideways, and pulled back his bat. The pitcher squinted at Stanley. "This guy is so skinny," he said. "I could hardly see where to throw." He threw a pitch. "Ball 1, said the umpire. Another pitch. "Ball 2, said the umpire. 2 more balls, and Stanley earned a walk. "Good job," called Coach Bart. Stanley's team played well. By the 9th inning, they led 6-5. The other team had one last chance. Their best hitter came to bat and blasted the ball toward the fence. Just then, the breeze picked up. Stanley ran and leaped into the wind. Whoosh! Up floated Stanley. Plunk went the ball into his glove. "Great play," Arthur called. Not everyone agreed. "No fair," yelled someone in the crowd. "Are flat players even allowed?" Stanley felt crushed. That night, Stanley talked to Arthur. "I'm a good player," he said. "And not just because I'm flat, but how can I prove it? I think I know a way," Arthur said. The day of the second game was bright and breezy again, but something was different. "Stanley," gasped Mrs. Lambchop. Her son was not flat. He was bursting out of his uniform. Mrs. Lambchop gasped again. "My nice clean laundry?" A sock stuck out of Stanley's collar. A purple frilly blouse trailed from his pant leg. "That's my favorite one," Mrs. Lambchop said. There was no time to worry about the clothes. The batter smacked the ball over Stanley's head. Stanley ran and leaped into the wind. But this time Stanley didn't float up, and the ball didn't land in his glove. It sailed right over the fence. Soon it was Stanley's turn to bat. The pitcher had no trouble seeing where to pitch now. "Strike one," called the umpire. "Strike two. Strike three." In the bleachers, Arthur gulped. He had made a terrible mistake, helping Stanley unflatten himself. The last inning rolled around. The game was tied. Stanley came to bat again. He heard Arthur's voice in the crowd. "Come on, Stanley, you can do it." The pitcher threw the ball, and Stanley smashed it. The ball flew into the outfield. Bap! It bounced off the wall. The right fielder ran to pick it up. Meanwhile, Stanley tore around the bases. First base, second base, third base. Stanley was headed home, but so was the ball. "Stanley, slide!" shouted Coach Bart. Arthur's heart raced. If Stanley was still flat, he could slide easily under the catcher's glove. But now Stanley